Carner, and this is a weekly tuning. And the topic that I'm tuning today is financial PTSD. I'm just going to go ahead without too much further ado and get started with what I'm doing. I'm leveraging largely biofield tuning methods and other frequency work. My main tools are tuning forks. I'm going to breathe a lot. If everybody watching this video could just breathe. And I'm tuning into financial PTSD. If you've ever had money struggles, if you grew up in a family that had money struggles, if you've been either through a short or a long period of your life where really being able to provide for yourself was a problem, you likely have some measure of financial PTSD. So what I do when I tune is I try and shift the patterns around the thought processes and the energies that we as a collective, if I'm doing an individual session, then I just work on that individual's frequencies and thought patterning. But when I do a collective, a group tuning, it's really about all the places that we hold on and aren't able to move past to change our financial situation or to change our relationship with the struggles that we have had. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm plugging into what is called the Earth Star Energy Center. If there were an actual body on my table, if this were a private session, it's located just below your feet. And I'm plugging into that and activating it, and in a minute I'll come around and do a similar point called the Sun Star Energy Point that's just above the head. But first, everybody take a nice big breath. And really, just relax. You don't have to do anything to receive the benefit of this work. Just breathe. And it doesn't even matter what the tuning fork sounds like. It's not sound healing in the same way that crystal bowls or singing or chanting or toning is. It's about putting a coherent sine wave into an area that has static so that it can entrain and smooth out and feel differently. And what I'm doing is I'm activating this Earth Star both as a grounding and as a way of sort of tethering the energy field to something. And it's also a way to, just like you would plug a battery into the back of your remote for your television, it's a way to sort of plug you in so that you can also recharge. And for these weekly tunings, I'm just trying to keep them really short. This is really just a sample and a way to begin to experience what this type of work can do. All right, the Sun Star energy point feels really tight and really kind of held close to the head, sort of like if you keep a hat pulled down really tightly, you won't get any rain in your eyes, sort of almost like a turtle shell. It's like we're tucked up to try and avoid any further catastrophe. I'm going to breathe a lot while I do this. I really recommend that you do the same. So the electromagnetic field of either an individual person or, in this case, a group of people. I know it looks like I'm tuning an empty table, but I'm working on the hologram of anybody who's ever had financial PTSD. And even though that is not in the DSM, I recently read an article regarding PTSD, financial PTSD, that was written by a psychologist who was very much arguing that it ought to be in the DSM. And given my own journey with finances and pretty much everybody I've ever known and probably will ever know, this is such a common, there we go. And then this is such a common experience that it almost acts like a knot in a muscle. And just like after a while, you really can't have a very good range of motion, say in your shoulder, if there's a huge muscle knot under your shoulder blade, and you'll eventually have to go to a massage therapist and get it worked out, or take some sort of muscle relaxer so that the fibers will ease down. What I do in tuning is I relax those fibers, the energetic, there we go. So I'm not changing anything about your money. I'm not changing anything about your history. I'm changing how you're holding it. So this energy center that I'm working on, that's just above the head, it's for your whole system. Again, it's sort of like the top end of where you would plug a battery into a remote control. So it accesses the whole body, but it does, because it's the top end, quote unquote, it refers to the energy of our heads and the way we think. And it's like there's a lot of muscling through. It's like I can think my way out of this, or I can think my way around this, or if I just thought of something super clever, it would suddenly sort of blow the barn doors open and everything would get better. But it's really hard to think when you're still stuck in the same groove. There we go. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and I'm going to check in with several points along the holographic body to see what area really holds the most charge or the heaviest weight around whatever our history with money has been. And then what I'm going to do is very quickly do what I can to cohere and harmonize the heaviest areas. Okay, wow. So I largely work on the chakra system. If you don't know what a chakra is, don't worry about it. If you do, the heaviest chakras were the second chakra, the fourth chakra, which is the heart, and the fifth chakra, which is the throat. It's interesting. It's like my grandmother used to have this expression, I wouldn't do that for love or money. So the second chakra is a lot about how we feel. And some of the themes are love and money. And then it's interesting because the other places that felt really heavy were the heart chakra. It seems that maybe a lot of our histories with financial loss were also coupled with or somehow intrinsically entwined with the loss of love as well, or fear that we would lose love if we lost our money. No, but it's really, it's like, it feels like sort of like when you go through a breakup with somebody that you've been living with, and all of a sudden not only are you heartbroken, but you're also homeless, and you're going to have to find somewhere to pay rent or pay the mortgage by yourself. And then it's also really interesting that the throat chakra was incredibly heavy, which really brings to mind, how do we talk about money, and how do we talk about money in our lives? I'm always so broke. I never have enough money. Oh, I can't afford that. I can't buy that. Oh, I'm gonna buy that, but I know I shouldn't. I really can't, but I'm gonna. It's like we're betraying ourselves with the words. It's like we feel like we don't have enough money, and then but we have a need that's so great that we go ahead and do it anyway, and then we feel worse, even though we got this thing that we said we needed so desperately. We can't even really enjoy it because we're too busy saying, I shouldn't have done that, I can't afford that, but I'm gonna. So what I'm doing is I'm just listening in. Again, I know it looks like I'm not doing anything, but if anybody's familiar with energy work or frequency work, you know that I'm working with something quite real, even though it happens to be invisible. So what I'm doing now is I'm right at the edge of the field, also getting feelings like you can't talk about money. It's all these unexpressed things about money, either lying to partners or friends or your parents or your children about what your finances really look like or what they did look like at a certain time. It's like you were trying to save people close to you the anguish of knowing how much you were struggling. And in doing so, and sort of trying to save them, you caused yourself more agony. Everybody just take a nice big deep breath. Breathe into your throat. Breathe into your lungs. And just imagine play with the idea that things could feel different. Really offer yourself the concept that whatever has been, and it doesn't matter how many times, it doesn't matter if you've been cyclically homeless or cyclically lost jobs or cyclically were unable to pay utilities or rent. Just because something has happened many times, it doesn't have to always be so. I recently heard a Carl Jung quote that said, "Until we make the unconscious conscious," oh shoot, now I can't remember it. Until we make the conscious conscious, we're going to keep repeating it and call it fate. So you can be like, oh yeah, Rebecca, fine. I can think that, I can try and think different, but it's just always happened so many times, and it's just going to keep happening. I know it's going to keep happening. I know I will always be like this. It's always going to be hard for me. I'll always have money issues. What else dropped in? I'll always have money issues because everybody in my family has always had money issues. Okay. You do not have to perpetuate that. And again, even if it's provable, even if it's true that you're from a long line of people who have had financial struggles, that patterning can shift in you. So what I'm really doing, I'm not going to move all the way through the field. I'm just touching on the outer points. To just bring a little bit of coherence, and then I'm going to go back and work over the body. Again, nice big deep breath. Just like the flow of breath, money, there's a reason why they call it currency. It's just a frequency. It's not in and of itself heavy or good or bad. Just like red is red and blue is blue, some people sort of like different shades of each of those colors. But they're not intrinsically anything. They just are what they are, and money is the same way. So if you have a belief that if you make money, it makes you unethical or greedy or selfish, none of that's really true. It's just like breathing in. I am not being selfish because I just took a big breath. I'm not robbing anyone or taking air from somebody else. There's plenty enough atmosphere to go around. And it's the same with money, although we've been enculturated to believe very, very, very differently. But we can stop that pattern. And we can shift our experience around that pattern for sure. So I really wanted to keep these short just to give people a taste and a feel. I'm going to move now in back towards the body. Now that I've sort of touched on some of the topics, I've aired some of the patternings that are there, and I'm just going to send some sine waves, send some frequencies into the energy centers that I worked on. What largely presented again was the heart and the throat. Even though the second chakra, the sacral chakra, presented in the beginning, really the focus wound up being on these uppers. So really, and now that I'm back over the heart chakra, if for you, the periods of time in your life that were the most financially stressful were also coupled with an emotional loss, the death of someone, the death of a relationship, the ending of a job, when you then go to consider money, remember to sort of separate the dollar signs from the broken heart sign, to speak in emojis. Because even though they happen many times concurrently, what you're grieving and sort of what you're recovering from are two different things. One is the heartache, the loss, or the upset, or the righteous indignation from having been let go, or laid off, or fired rudely. That's separate from then the resulting financial crisis. And so when you look at the crisis, remember, oh, heart, it's okay. You were upset about that thing, and that's a part of it. But what I can do is pick myself back up financially and get back on track financially. All right, I'm just gonna connect the heart chakra up to the universe. And again, this really wasn't a full tuning, but it's just a way to, in the present, talk about something, put a little bit more expansion, make a little bit of an opening, so that from the present moving forward, we can maybe nudge ourselves, pry ourselves out of such a well-worn groove kind of get curious, what if I thought, okay, now I moved up to the throat chakra, wow. Okay, truly, for anybody who is familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements, one of them is, I think it's either the first or the second one, I can't remember now. Be impeccable with your words. I cannot stress that highly enough. Be mindful about how you talk, about how you talk about your finances. And then the precursor to how we talk about our finances is truly how we think. I mean, you can be really careful with your words, but if you're still thinking the same thought, unfortunately, that's only half the battle. But maybe because some of our automatic thinking is really, really hard to catch, if the easiest way for you to kind of realize that you're having those repetitious thoughts is when you are able to hear what you're saying, start with the words. And I can offer some suggestions, like, rather than saying, I never have any money, I'm so broke, I can't do that, which makes you feel both poor and you kind of now have a bad case of FOMO because you can't go do what you wanted to do. Rather than saying that, say something like, given the money that I do have, I'm not going to prioritize it for that today. So that doesn't mean you can't ever do it. And that also doesn't mean that you don't have any money. It just means that the money that you do have, you're not going to prioritize spending that currency, deploying those units of energy in that way today, because it would feel better for you financially to not expend that, to not discharge that currency. And so that way, that shifts more into being recharged, or at least charging, rather than discharging all the currency. Yeah, wow. And like, I'm always going to be broke. I never have any money. It's never going to get better. You know, there are so many song lyrics about not having any money that have given us that have taken so much authorship of the way we think about money. And it was a song. It wasn't even us necessarily, but we get used to saying those words. So really be mindful of how you want to say that. With all that I have today, I don't think that's the best choice for me. Rather than, I can't do that, I'm so poor. All right, and I'm just going to connect this up. And again, so it's just bringing a little bit of brightness, a little bit of opening to a really heavy, really common topic. And then I'm going to wrap up the energy field. As I do more of these, you'll sort of get to know a little bit more about the method and what I'm doing. But rather than a whole lot of explanation, I really just wanted to get this out and make these tunings available for people. I'm going to wrap up the energy. We kind of opened it up, we dove in, and now I'm sealing it off. and connecting from today forward. May we move and speak with a little more ease around money. Again, I'm Rebecca Carner, RebeccaCarner.com. If you'd like a private session or are interested in knowing more about my methods, please contact me. Thanks.